Hello everybody, I'm Ghast for FEE3, and I welcome you to the Bloodlines AMA, where I'll be answering questions all around various communities of Fire Emblem and Fire Emblem hacking. And while I'm answering these questions, you'll be watching the development of Chapter 9. So just you have something to watch while you hear my voice. So just want to say before we start, thank you everyone who asked questions. I love, just talking about Fire Emblem and stuff like that, and I love talking about the hack, talking to other hackers about their projects and interviewing them, and it's fun getting interviewed because it's fun to talk about your own shit. So, like I said, thank you for that, and let's get started. So, there's actually a lot of questions. So hopefully I'll get through most of them in a not stumbly way. So, question number 1. How do you go about learning to do this, and how many hours in are you? I started with the ultimate tutorial, and then I graduated from that and then moved on to eventing videos, and it was Arch's eventing tutorial that got the ball rolling for me, and then it was Eventiel over on the Emblem Brigade, which kind of and I've praised Eventiel before in my own hacking tutorials, and those 3 things kind of covered all I needed. And there was also, it's basically like different tutorials specifying on different things that made me able to learn everything. So for graphics, it was the ultimate tutorial, because I think the ultimate tutorial is the best guide ever for learning how to do graphics. Eventiel, Yeti's tutorial on eventing from FE Cafe, I think, and Arch's eventing tutorials were all for learning how to event and learning what codes to use. And then it was Nintenlord's tiled inserting tutorial and tiled itself, and Marky Joe's tiled insertion tutorial. So it was lots of video tutorials and lots of like really specific tutorials from different people, and that's how I got to learning to do it. And how many hours in, I don't know like the hours, but I made the project public in January 2014, and now it's September 2015, so a year and some, I guess. A year, almost 2 years now, I think. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work to do. Like, Olympian Knights has been around since 2010, and Immortal Sword has been around since 2011, and shit like that. So it's a long amount of time, lots of hours, uncountable amounts of hours. What do you think is the ideal final boss in a Fire Emblem game? My favorite bosses in any game ever are like giant monsters that just totally shit on all the fucking puny human creatures and shit like that that you've been fighting before, and then you have to fight this big giant monstrous thing. I think those are my favorite because it's just so intense, man. Like, you're all I can only just picture like there's this big thing and you're all like charging towards this big fucking monster. So definitely my ideal final boss is like big giant Demon King sized, you know, like giant not human things. What is your favorite chapter from any Fire Emblem hack? My favorite chapter so far was actually from 7X, Immortal Sword. And it was chapter 7, and it was my favorite because I don't know if it was because of the chapter, because I'd have to like think about all the hacks I've played so far. But my fondest memory playing a fan game, was in that chapter, in chapter 7. And basically we had to fight this little squadron of enemies that were coming down from the north, and then there was the boss who changed his AI and he was walking towards the group, and so we had to kill those guys up top and then had to deal with this guy with the killer lance. And then we ended up in a spot where we needed the most perfect and amazing plan to get the kill. And Prime, just because I was with Prime, and he thought of like the most insane plan ever, where it was just like trade streaming, hitting. We landed all the hits, we didn't miss once, and the enemy dropped a sick item. Where it was like the enemy dropped an item that I haven't actually used yet because I haven't played 7X since, because the game isn't finished on hard mode and I didn't have time to like start playing it over. So I don't know if the item is actually useful. But anyway, he had a killer lance. Like we killed him. We didn't get critted or anything. Like it was just the most intense sequence of events ever. Like it was a rush, man. What are your thoughts on good map design? I think there are two big rules when it comes to map design. That, you know, if you get these two things right, then it's a good game. It's a good chapter, I think. Well, it's on its way to becoming a good chapter. The first one is just making it aesthetically pleasing to look at. Like, you don't want to look at a shitty looking map with like dumb spam all over the place and it's just like weirdly flat and stuff, and it's just not varied. So aesthetically pleasing maps are good. And secondly is when, and this is to quote Marky Joe, like loosely quote, what is it called? Paraphrasing? Yeah. To paraphrase Marky Joe, yeah, the map size should be enough to hold all of your concepts, ideas, like gimmicks and shit. It should be in the size where it can hold all those things and nothing else. So there's no sort of like brainless moments where you're just like trudging along the map when you're not doing anything, you're not thinking about anything. I don't necessarily think you have to do this all the time, but if you get those two things right, like if you have a really nice looking map and you don't have an excessive amount of turns where you're not doing anything because you have to wait for a gimmick to happen or wait for a mechanic in the chapter to happen. I think if you get those two things right, then you're well on your way to making a good map. Now, it's not like super integral that you do these two things or else your map sucks, or your map design is terrible, but for me, if I feel like I'm doing something productive every turn, or something meaningful every turn, then I think that's good map design. When creating Bloodlines, what do you think is more important to get perfect? Story, gameplay, or both? What is your main focus? I think they're both super important. I can't really point my finger at which one's more important. I think story is important because I'm really, like, Bloodlines is such a weird fucking hack. Like, it's just does so much weird shit, and I'll say that because it's fucking weird. Like, you have a fucking playable dog as a character. Like, it's just like who would think? Like, it's just like it's such a weird out there concept. And so when you have these like wacky things, I really want the story to be able to back these crazy things up in a way that these aren't just gimmicks and like things to be like, oh, look, play Bloodlines, I have a fucking dog, or I have a flying bird, or whatever, or I have pigs and stuff. They're all important and they all have their own role. The hardest, and you know, for me, making a sensible story is really huge, because for me, I love stories in games. Like, I think narratives and stuff like that are so interesting, and, you know, the development of a plot all the way to, like, the big moment, and then, like, the way it ends and stuff. I think it's just super important. I personally think it's a huge part of Fire Emblem. Despite some stories in Fire Emblem being pretty blasé, I still think it's really important to nail. And in terms of gameplay, it's kind of the same thing. Like, you can have a really bad story, but you can still have a fun game. And at the end of the day, you want to play something fun. So gameplay is also super important, and some would argue that it's more important. I'm still on the fence, but I'm probably leaning towards gameplay. You know what? I think they're both important. For Bloodlines, I like to tie in story a lot with the gameplay. I like to tie in where you are, like, situationally within the gameplay. For example, in Chapter 2, when you're fighting bees, they're part of the story, and they're also part of the gameplay. So I have to get these things both down right. But in general, I think gameplay is more important. If I had a choice between a really terrible story and really amazing gameplay, or really amazing story and really terrible gameplay, I'd go for the former, because you're going to want to play something that's more fun than shitty. That's the nature of a game, I think. Yeah, so currently my main focus is gameplay, but stories obviously, it's probably like a 60-40 type of thing for me, because I just love writing. What's been the hardest part of the whole process? How many people are working on this? What's been the hardest part about the whole process? Animations, probably, because animations take fucking forever. Like, they take fucking weeks and weeks and months and months. Oh, it's absurd. How long to get it right and framed and everything. Like, it's such a tedious process. But that's the way it is. How many people are working on this? There are 5 people working on this right now. And then I have a 6th person, so I have 6. And then, but one person is... I have 6. I have 6 people working on it, let's just say that. Will Dewey have a class change? Yeah. Will you introduce more characters like him in Bloodlines? Yep. What special classes will Generations bring us? So Generations is a ROM hack with me and Arch. And in terms of classes, we don't know. It depends on what... Yeah, you know what? I don't know. It's not going to be like Bloodlines level of special classes, that's for sure. If you had to make Reggie, the Nintendo of America president, into a character, what would be his role in class? He's a pretty big dude, right? Like, he seems like fucking tall as shit, and he's kind of wide, so probably like a general? Yeah, he's like the head dude, right? So he'd be a general. I definitely picture general for for him. For Reggie, for sure. Where'd you get the idea for using monster people? My primary inspiration was Shining Force 2, because that game is the best game of all time ever in the history of video games, and it will be for the rest of time. No matter what you say, I don't care what you say about it. Shining Force 2 is the best game ever. Now that's out of the way. Shining Force was my huge inspiration because they have demi-humans too. A lot of the characters were inspired from Shining Force, that whole series. So yeah, the demi-humans were inspired from Shining Force. And originally, when I was making the hack, it never actually had demi-humans. Like, it was gonna be like run-of-the-mill, you know, there's a lord that's a human, everyone's a fucking human and shit. And then I played Shining Force 2 over again, and I was like, man, this can be huge for Fire Emblem. Like, this can be really solid. Like, if Shining Force can do it, I can fucking do it. So that was it, and then that was my idea. I got the idea from Shining Force. Do you have a favorite character to write lines for / in general? Yeah, it's Malcolm. It's Malcolm and Kale right now. I don't know about the future. Malcolm, because I think his personality is the most like my personality. And so when I write for Malcolm, I feel like I'm genuinely like writing as if I were him. And Kale is because Kale is like this rural guy, and I'm from a rural town where, and I know people who speak like him. Like, I'm friends with people who speak like boy. Well, it's like an Atlantic province where people talk like that. When you're in like Newfoundland, I think Ikat was from Newfoundland actually, so she might know what I'm talking about. And then there are other. Like, there are some places where I'm from that talk like that, so that whole kind of like really country accent. Like, if you think I have a Canadian accent because I say a boat and a lot, like, you should hear these fucking people, man. Like, they're so fucking funny. But yeah, Malcolm and Kale are definitely the ones. What's your favorite chapter you've created so far? Chapter 2, the new Chapter 2. Because I wanted to incorporate animals in a way that no one's ever have. And not only that, because like in the first version, the bees, or in the first version, the swarms were just these random things in a corner. I didn't know what to do with them at first. Like, I just put them in there because I didn't know what to do with them, and I just put them in there because, oh look, I can just throw them in the story somehow. And I was always not sure of what I was going to do with them in the future. And then in the second version, and they actually fought on your side and against you as like a literal third faction, and designing a chapter around that was just super fun because it was a really new thing and something I've never done before. And that was the funnest thing for sure. And the bees are funny. And there's a really funny glitch that Tequila found. That's like hilarious. Favorite glitch during development. What was my favorite glitch during development? There's one glitch that came up while I was making the interim chapter after chapter 2, and I'll post a GIF of it. A GIF or a GIF? I think it's a GIF. Anyway, I'll post it right here. And I don't know how this happened. I was trying to emulate the Z-Hacks world map, because the Z-Hacks world map is a cutscene, and it's not an actual map. It's just literally a cutscene with moving units on it. And the way they had to set it up was they had to like load a random map in, and then right after that they had to load a cutscene over it, like a literal cutscene graphic over it, to I guess make the game think that the cutscene was its own map. And so I tried to do something with that. Like I disassembled the chapter that they used that cutscene map, and I figured out what they did, and I tried to do it, and then I ended up making Bram, Dewey, and Malcolm's map sprite appear in a text box, and it was just the funniest thing. It was so funny. What inspired you to make a hack? I don't remember at all, really. I think it was seeing like custom animations for the first time and being like, what the fuck, how do people do this? Oh, you know what it was? It was Olympian Nights, I think. I think it was like a compilation of like Olympian Nights screenshots, Ragefest, and those custom animations that Japanese guy on YouTube made, and there was like 3 of them, and like half of them were just like FE7 if animations. I think it's like username was like Tiki50 set or something. I don't know, but those 3 things are what inspired me to make a hack. Have the plot and characters changed since the hack's inception? For the most part, the characters remain the same in their personality, and it's just how their personality is fleshed out is what improves and changes. What are your favorite sprites? I guess that's for the hack? It wasn't specified. My favorite sprites in general. My favorite sprite in general is the halberdier that I think the blind archer made. And not because it's like the most outstanding animation I've ever seen, but because I think at the time, compared to every other animation out there, that was so smooth to me. When I saw that halberdier animation in that compilation video, yeah, that's what it was. It was FE. It was one of my other inspirations was the FE3 compilation video of animations that had the Black Beauty reskin, some other stuff that Skitty did, I guess, or Kyle, I forget which one. And then that halberdier animation was at the end, and I was so floored. Like, it was the most insane thing I've ever seen ever. Like, and a custom animation that was so smooth, it looked like it was from it looked like it was from Intelligent Systems. So that was my favorite sprite for anything in general. Is there anything you're really proud of? Well, yeah, version 1.4 is something I'm really proud of, because 1.3, like the jump from 1.3 to 1.4 is like absurd. For me it is. I look at version 1.3 and the versions before that, and I was like, wow, I made that. And then I look at 1.4 and I think it's like just a testament to how much you can improve in a year for anyone. Like, it was just so much better. It was just in every possible way. It was just so much better. Like, and that was me literally just taking everybody's feedback, no matter how harsh it was, and like just being able to, and people actually telling me this is fucking way better, and it's just like, yeah, bud. What do you find most rewarding? What do you find most discouraging about hacking, and where do you find your ideas and inspiration? What do you find most rewarding? Finishing animations is super rewarding. There's no feeling when it comes to hacking and the whole thing, like when you complete an animation and you frame it and then you insert it with sounds and then you play it in the game and it runs smooth. There's no feeling like that. Like the smile goes on your face and you're just like, fuck yeah, this took me so long to do and I finally finished it. And you see this, you see like your art come to life. I'm proud of I'm proud of my animations, and what's really rewarding is when you see your work finished, you know, when you see your sprites finished. And I think every artist can agree, like when you finish a long-term project, it's rewarding. What do you find most discouraging about hacking? When you have to deal with the stupid hack with the game. When you have to deal with weird glitches that make no sense and you cannot figure out for the life of you why. That's the most discouraging thing about it, is when you're like doing something and then something fucks up and you have literally no idea where it came from and you're just like, fuck me, like I don't know where this is and I have to deal with it. That's the most annoying thing, is when you're going smoothly and then something happens and then like it just lingers forever and ever and it's just like, where the fuck are you coming from? That's the most discouraging part, is when it's like so fragile. The game is super fragile. So when you break the fragility of it and you literally just shatter the game, it's just like, well, good thing I made backups. And where do you find your ideas and inspiration? Like I said, it was Shining Force that inspires me, but I find my ideas through playing other games and through playing other hacks and playing and just and watching TV. A lot of story stuff comes from other games. Well, like a lot of story inspiration and gameplay ideas have come from playing other games and just kind of like melting things together and to make it like something that I can call my own. But it's inspired and the ideas came from other things. For example, this is gonna sound silly, but the rapport thing, the rapport system, came from dating sims, like watching let's plays of dating sims, and like having your decisions like have weight on what usually the girl, because like you're the guy and whatever, and when your decisions have weight and like when they get mad when you make a decision, that's what inspired that, and it was just, that was really fun. I got my idea off that. I was playing the zombie hack. And the zombie hack, I don't know if the zombie hack was one of the first hacks to use red text as like hint indicators, but that wasn't in the first version of the game. I don't think it was in the third version, or version 1.3 either. But then I played that, and then I was like, man, this is like super useful. Like this is super helpful to the player. And so then I took that idea from them. But yeah, a lot of Fire Emblem things from other games help me to think of stuff for Bloodlines. Why does Dewey suck and when will he get better? He's a puppy, man. He's like really fragile, he's really squishy, and he's not a combat character. He gets better at the end of part 2. I can promise you that. He gets better at the end of part 2. That's all I can say, is that he gets better at the end. What are your thoughts on FEXNA? I think FEXNA is going to bolster the activity of hacking and fan games. For sure. It's gonna make so many more topics, and it's gonna create so much more things to play because it's super accessible and it's really smart. And from what I've seen, it's like, from what I've heard rather, is that it's super easy to get into and you cannot be constrained by GBA. I think it's really good that it's going to bolster activity in the forum, and I think it's really good that people don't need to learn hacking and they can just kind of jump right into the game, or right into the engine, and sort of like sensibly put things together in a way that you want them to, and you don't have to like jump through hoops like hacking does. I think FEXNA is going to be really great for that, and it's going to really help reveal the hidden creativity that people are trying to implement, but they can't because the resources aren't available to them, and the restrictions in the GBA. are restrictive. FEXNA definitely breaks the restrictions. However, and I think this is something that people should consider, is that it's not a press enter to win game button. You know, it's not a press enter to be it's not a press enter get a game sort of thing. You still have to be like, it's gonna help you realize your creativity, but it's not gonna be creative for you. And I think people are sort of under the impression that they can just learn code and then just do whatever they want to do in their head. You can't. I don't think that's how code works. I don't think you can just tell yourself you're going to learn code and then insert these crazy ideas you have in your head because FEXNA is out. It's just yeah, I don't think, like, I think people should be wary of that, and I think people shouldn't be expecting that they can, just because it's an open program, that they can do anything they want. They still have to have the skills to do it. And another thing is that the person who's making the game still has to be creative. They still have to write well, and they still have to think of interesting design ideas and make a game that doesn't suck balls. Like, that's what you need to do, and I don't think FEXNA is going to help you with that. I think that's on you. So I think in summary, I think FEXNA is gonna hugely change the game, and I honestly have no idea what's gonna happen. I really don't. I'm kind of excited to see what happens once FEXNA comes out. I'll say that much. Yeah, I'm curious as to how it's gonna shape the face of the whole hacking thing, or if it eradicates it for good, like some people think it is, and stuff like that. We'll just have to see. Will you add more things to the gameplay, like skills, more music, battles, items, weapons, scrolls, etc.? Ooh. I try to add one stupid thing each chapter. Each chapter I want to have its own sort of style and its own identity. So, and I never really know what it's going to be. I don't really have a set plan going into it, and then I stick with it. I usually just like have a concept, and then I add on to it. So, of course, I'll be adding more things to the gameplay. Skills, I doubt it. I don't have the time to fuck with skills. Just straight up, I don't have the time for it. More music, yes. More battles, yes. Items, I mean, yeah. I mean, everything's gonna keep advancing, and there's gonna be a lot of shit I'm adding. Will we ever get a healer that doesn't fucking suck? Sadati's the GOAT. Sadati's a tank, man. I don't know what you're talking about. You're fucked up, bro. The magic system, with various animal species having weaknesses to certain elements, is something you've touted in the past, but so far in public demos, all magic has been the exact same in terms of stats and animations, with only names and icons changed. In addition to the Reaver tomes, are we going to be seeing more interesting magic in general in Part 2, or any changes made to the early game magic to differentiate it from vanilla? Well, I mean, no. The vanilla triangle is gonna stay the same, because I personally really like light, dark, and anima as the triangle. I don't really care that much about, you know, anima like circle jerking each other. I don't really give a fuck about that. The magic triangle is not gonna change. I don't think so. I don't really care. I like the way it is. I know people really like changing the magic triangle around, but I mean, I like my shamans, man. I like my monks. The playable units in general have high growths all around and no huge weaknesses. Will this change? Yeah, probably will change. The further I get through the game, the further I balance things, the more I'm likely to change the first part's characters. That's for sure. It's always, balancing is the toughest thing, because my chapters always change because I'm fucking ADHD and I can't, like, I can't stick to one idea and like roll with it. I have to change things up all the time. And the last question for the AMA is, how do you hope to impact the hacking community with your work? I just want to see the community grow, dude. Like, I just want to help as many projects as I can. Just give people the recognition they deserve. This community is really awesome. I know it's had a shitty past, and I know it's had a pretty wild rides in the early 2010 and shit like that. But that's in the past. I hope I can just set a good example. Well, that's all the questions for the Bloodlines AMA. Just wanted to say a big thanks to everyone who submitted a question. Really appreciate it. It's really fun answering questions, and it feels fun after you do these interviews and you just kind of be like, you want to talk about yourself for a bit. You want to vocalize everything. So yeah, thanks for everyone who's tuning in right now. And with that being said, I'm Ghast, and I'll catch you guys on the next submission.